After winning 2 major school discipline policies in a span of 6 years that energized the national movement to end the school-to-prison pipeline, the 3-year period from 2013 to 2016 was a different kind of turning point. Our local victories in Los Angeles, including the discipline data that was emerging from them, as well as proof of whether or not they were being successfully implemented, started to become case studies for others to learn from. The invitations to do projects with more and more intermediaries like foundation design collaboratives, academics, juvenile court judges, and even school districts and state and local governments came one after another. The projects were aimed to design toolkits, policy and implementation recommendations, professional development, multi-stakeholder partnerships. The challenge was to determine whether and how these special projects would benefit our parents by providing them with actual leverage in their individual and collective advocacy and power at school sites. We have always said that our campaign victories must translate into equitable power for parents in one-to-one meetings with teachers and school staff when no one is looking and cameras are not around. They must translate to parents walking into and out of advocacy meetings with tools, strategies, growth, faith, and an experience of themselves exercising their leadership and power. The journey between individual parent empowerment as advocates for their children and collective community empowerment as thought partners with policymakers, district staff, intermediaries, attorneys and judges, professors, and funders can be both short and long at the same time. It all depends on whether the projects start with and center parents' truths, foster solidarity, and result in parents increasing their innate capacity to understand the complex terrain of power differentials and bottom lines among our allies and opposition, the narratives surrounding Black and brown parents, school discipline, and our solutions, and the distinction between different strategies and tactics, and whether they yield short-term wins that do not jeopardize our long-term goals and vision. Since these tables often exclude grassroots marginalized parents, saying yes to these projects was not easy, and it often meant extra work on our part to change the culture and conversations with many partners, project by project, to make sure that our parents' truths and realities were not utilized in ways that harmed our emerging pedagogy of redefining parent narrative and power. It was also a matter of ensuring that these projects did not distract us from the ongoing need to stay true to our bottom line of organizing parents, knocking on doors, engaging and training new parents, creating the conditions for more core leaders to emerge, as well as continuing to support our current core leaders in advancing their capacities, ensure we were building individual and collective power day to day. These 3 years saw us really get the hang of our academy, and we saw some of the highest participation and graduation rates to date. It became clearer how the academy could be the portal for new parents, but also deliberately position them after the academy to join our monitoring team and core leadership. While the academy was more of an individual process, the community that is built throughout, the monitoring habits that take root, and the consciousness about power that emerges, all of it had become a system of sorts, a cycle that we could rely upon to create the foundation for new leaders. After each academy cycle of 8 weeks, it was our organizers' opportunity to recruit and develop them. One feature of the academy curriculum that we innovated into a signature strategy was the practice of having regular one-on-ones with teachers, which we expanded to include classroom observations. While we have been doing these classroom observations informally for a number of years, between 2013 and 2016, our organizers brilliantly coached and coordinated our academy participants twice a year to conduct 30 to 50 observations in the same week, our fall and spring weeks of action. The camaraderie and solidarity that we envisioned for parents doing these together came to fruition. It was a beautiful sight to see, and it became the connector between the academy and our long-term campaign to end the school-to-prison pipeline. And scaling up our monitoring was essential. Like we had after winning SFP PBS in 2007, after winning the School Climate Bill of Rights in May 2013, we escalated our parent-led monitoring. The School Climate Bill of Rights had so many elements that gave parents more leverage to monitor and demand implementation at their schools. We could have expectations of monthly discipline data reports available online. We could expect to have parents and high school students included on school site-based discipline review teams and file complaints if these things were not happening. And with the elimination of willful defiance as a justifiable reason to suspend students, we knew that the next few years were going to be a brand new adventure for schools and families alike. The main momentum for the district, however, was on training every school in restorative justice. In order to do this, a new resource seemed to lie in the new education funding formula created by former Governor Jerry Brown, the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. Each school and district had to submit local control accountability plans, or LCAPs, in order to show how this funding would additionally supplement support for the most marginalized students. It was astounding and sobering at the same time. While our movement had influenced suspension data to be included as a metric that schools had to measure for the first time in their LCAPs, the increased focus on supporting the highest need students with this data, along with restorative justice, was contradicted by the Los Angeles School Police Department being funded with these supplemental dollars under the guise of training school police in restorative justice and saying that more police was necessary to support the most marginalized students. We rushed to monitor LA Unified's LCAP to see how many of these student support dollars, in essence, went to law enforcement to make up budget deficits from the previous recession. We demanded data to see how schools were spending their supplemental student support funding. We were successful for a couple of years in blocking this misuse of funding. Eventually, however, the work it took to get real data about LCAP spending became extremely burdensome. The work of fighting uphill all the time against dehumanization takes its toll. A major gift during this period was being able to experiment with investing in our parents more holistically. For a couple of years, beginning in 2015, we piloted our resilience program, which brought parents to farmers markets, introduced parents to breathing meditation and yoga, and demonstrated cooking with healthy ingredients. It was pure joy to get to do this and to be reminded of all the possibilities for community development when we center parents. We were also reminded of all the possibilities for our office space that we had yet to make a reality: a kitchen, an exercise area, an improved childcare area, more art. The idea of the CADRE office as a center, a space to ground South LA parent organizing and give it what it needs to flourish into a full model and pedagogy, had taken root. – 2016 ended with the privilege of celebrating our 15th anniversary, and doing so with our Dignity in Schools campaign family from around the country. And if it wasn't evident before this, our annual fundraising events are all about reframing, redefining what parent organizing is and can be, how far it needs to go beyond engagement and representation. Transformational, not transactional. Deep, holistic, and long-term. Not a one-time thing for the purpose of another one-time thing. And not just having parents at the table, but changing the table because the parents are there. And they are truth tellers, whether we want to hear the truth or not. However parents' truths come packaged, they point to where we are as a society and how much we value family and community as opposed to individuals. Tune in to our second to last video that will provide insight into CADRE's continued emergence from 2016 to 2019 as a storyteller, narrative shifter, movement builder, practitioner of design thinking, and for the first time, plaintiff in a literacy lawsuit.